Serious, what is the most cringe-worthy thing you have ever done? NSFW. When I was 20, I made a rap CD. It was terrible, but I convinced a bar in the next town over to play a song from it. He made a big deal introducing it as from an up-and-coming rapper from the next town over. He played like 40 seconds of it then turned it off. It was pretty bad. It still cringes me out. Just happened today. Was talking with a co-worker about what car he had. Ford Focus Street. A car I would love to have. I tried to say I love that car and was thinking about jokingly saying I hate you. And it came out as an extremely awkward I love you. Then tried to recover with what I was actually going to say. Fumbled hardcore. And ended up walking away. I'm a straight dude. Edit. I'm glad I was able to brighten some of your days with a laugh. More than fishing when I had to it. Tennessee River. I was on the lake and felt that familiar stabbing pain and knew what was coming. I quickly came to the point where I knew I had to make a decision soon. Either ruin my morning and clothes or find a spot to drop a deuce. I tied up to a residential dock and squatted behind a couple of bushes near the water. As I'm blowing brown bombs I looked over and saw a Disney Cinderella tent. Little kids one, less than 10 feet from me and could hear people moving inside. I instantly wiped, had to use a polishing cloth, which equals rash, and jogged half bare ass back to the boat pulling my pants up in the process. While I was unhooking from the dock, I glanced up and saw a little blonde girl was staring at me. Not like an angry stare, but more like a there goes my childhood. It was the foulest smelling it I had ever taken in my life. I waltzed into my class and said stinks like pot in here very loudly, swinging my bag around like a douche. Everyone was looking at me all weird, so I follow up with yeesh. Who died? A classmate died. He committed suicide and they just heard about it. People were crying. I asked my sister for a blowjob. I've always had a fantasy about her sucking me off. I should never have let it go beyond fapping. When I was 8 or so I put on dark red lipstick, heavy lip liner, heavy eyebrow pencil, big hoop earrings, and an oversized Dallas Cowboys jersey and walked out to my mailbox to act like I was talking to boys. I lived about 10 miles out of town. I was lonely and awkward. TLDR, dressed like an 8-year-old chola. When I was 14, I made a Linkin Park music video with my friend and her 2 siblings. It involved us lip syncing, fake playing a guitar, fake playing a drum set, headbanging, jumping around. It was so incredibly embarrassing to watch it again for the first time 13 years later. Oh god. My boyfriend wanted to watch it and he couldn't after the first few seconds. Another unintentional racist story. When I was like 6, I stood on my seat at a Toronto Blue Jays game when Devin White was up to bat and screamed if he's black, why is his last name White? I still cringe every time my parents remind me about it. Study date in college. Take shower before. Do the whole clear nose into hands move. Feel snot come out, but don't see it. Oh well. Meet unbelievably cute girl at library. Sit across from her. Talk. Reach up to touch my face. Realize entire snot rocket had been rubbed into my eyebrow. I'm sitting at a bar with my older bro and my sister-in-law. He and my brother start exchanging your mom jokes. Because we're just weird like that. My sister-in-law chimes in with something along the lines of you guys are pathetic, to which I immediately reply your mom is pathetic. I then watch her face turn horrified as I remember that her mom died of cancer earlier that year. Sorry sis. Oh man. This moment will forever haunt me. Back when I was around 8, me and a few other neighbor kids, all boys, around the same age decided to put on a dance show for the entire cul-de-sac. To our surprise, half the street shows up to my house for the dance show and my friends and I proceed to play a combination of Britney Spears and NSYNC as we ran around the house dancing. I still vividly remember wrapping a soccer ball in tinfoil to use as a disco ball. This girl I liked back when I was 17. We got on really well and I thought this meant that we were clearly meant to be forever and ever. So after a little pestering, she turns around and says, I think of you like a family member. You're a really good friend but nothing more. This is when my brain went, you've got this now. Use this line. Yeah. Well, I hope you're into incest then. Boom. I threw a water balloon at my friend from my apartment balcony. Well, I didn't time it correctly, so he just walked right by and the balloon landed on a baby in a stroller. The mom did not find it as funny as I did. When I was in high school, I approached a group of girls that were talking. One of them was a good friend of mine and I was trying to expand my social circle. I was there for about 30 seconds listening to one of them talking, and once she finished they started to laugh as she had said something funny. I had missed the first part of the conversation, but I decided to laugh anyway to fit in. Well, when I laughed, I snorted a bit. A giant glob of snot shot out and was all over my face and mouth. I instinctively moved my arm up to my face to hide it and wipe it off before they could see, but it was too late. I was so embarrassed. Back in primary school, a girl was telling everyone how she'd give them a hug for 50p. Basically, I had a fiver on me and decided, hey, why not? I was also terrible at maths. When I walked up to her, she said, 50p for a hug. Me, being terrible at maths and completely unaware of what it would sound like, said, what will I get for a fiver? I'm much better at maths now, and still cringe to this day when I think about it. Looked up pictures of erect elephant D's in the computer lab in 7th grade, while my teacher was standing behind me. I was walking down the street and this guy was looking directly at me, smiling and everything as if he was seeing someone familiar. I was thinking, I don't know that person, do I? Then he said hi. So I smiled and, wanting to avoid looking like an asshole that didn't recognize him, said hi. How are you, man? Just as the person behind me said, hey, what's up? When I was a very little kid, I was on the streetcar with my father and noticed a black man was from the country, and it was the first black person I ever saw in person. And I said to my dad, that man is made out of chocolate. My dad, visibly embarrassed, told me not to say things like that as I said it pretty loud. The black man obviously heard me say and leaned forward all suave and was like, don't worry, I get that all the time. Me. I once threw up on a guy while giving head. Ugh. I still cringe about this today even though it happened 3 years ago. I was in 10th or 11th grade at the time and the teacher told the class that we were going to be doing a report on stories from around the world. Now keep in mind that the teacher never actually specified what type of stories that these had to be. My friends, who were both weirdos, and I decided that we should do our presentation on anime. A week later it's time to present. Everyone else had presented their projects, which usually involved short stories and novels, often from hundreds of years ago. My group steps up to the front of class and we begin our presentation. Our presentation, I mumble, is on Japanese anime. The whole class bursts into laughter. I can see the teacher visibly cringing. My group continues on with the presentation and the class is chuckling throughout. Finally the presentation ends and rather than applauding us, the class just sits there in an awkward silence. I received a B on the project, but I'm certain it was only because the teacher felt bad for my group. I never socially recovered from that, and every time I think about it I just imagine blasting my brains out. I was seeing a patient with acute exacerbation of chronic back pain. He was pretty much bedridden and couldn't move due to the pain. I had had something for lunch that didn't agree with me and I was also on my high protein kick, so I'd had eggs for breakfast. I could feel the gas building up as I was talking to him, to the point it was painful. I thought I could hold on until after I had finished the consult, but it got to the point where I thought, duck it, I'll just release a valve a little bit, it'll be fine. It was not fine. That tiny bit of gas permeated the air like the room was an Auschwitz shower. I could see the patient's face screw up a few seconds later, and he gave me an accusing look, like what the duck. Doc. I quickly finished my examination and ran out of there, leaving him to wallow in my stench. Just reminding you, he was bedbound, couldn't get up and move to a safe zone. When I was like 8 or 9 I went to this friend's birthday. He had a cast on his legs because he had broke his leg a while ago, but it was healing so he was able to take the cast off for the event. But he had to be careful still. I don't know how it came to that, but we were all sitting on the ground in the living room while he was opening presents and somehow he joked about leaving by crawling away from the group. My reaction was to jokingly make him stay by grabbing his leg and pulling him back in, but it took me a few seconds to realize that people weren't laughing anymore but yelling at me to stop, and that my friend wasn't laughing but crying from the pain. Killed the mood right there. Thanks for reminding me. I have done a ton of cringy things, mostly during my early teens. Here are some examples. I wore a bright orange shirt that said county jail on the back of it, and finger armor for my 7th grade pictures. I gel spiked my sideburns for 8th grade pictures. I once swore on my life that the chemical in turkey that made you tired was called estrogen, and I argued with people about it in my advanced English class. I told a D-joke to a bunch of little kids, not knowing it was a D-joke. I videotaped myself pooping and showed it to a group of high school cheerleaders. I, too, was in high school. It was around the time that Jackass CKY was really popular. When I was 21, I got super drunk after my girlfriend cheated on me, called her best friend and told her I was going to throw myself down the stairs. Minutes later, police showed up and I took an ambulance to the hospital, and my entire family showed up thinking I tried to kill myself, only to realize that I was just wasted and not suicidal. But what really takes the cake for me, a couple weeks ago I was on the phone with my mom talking about birthday plans while waiting in line to pay for gasoline. When it was my turn at the cash register, I hung up the phone, telling my mom alright, bye, I love you. Paid for my gas. Cashier said thanks and I said, thanks, love you. Promptly turned around red-faced, questioning my existence, and I accidentally punched an old black lady in the boob. Halloween friend's birthday party this year. I met this one girl. We hit it off really well. We're sitting on the couch by the window, sneakily making out. Probably everyone noticed that though. Suddenly she says it's really stuffy in here, isn't it? And what did drunkish genius me do? I've reached behind my back, pushed the window open and asked better. When I was younger and I didn't understand that it's uncool to include unwitting people in your fetishes, I did a load of things that alienated me from many of my friends. There was a party in early college where I wore a short skirt with no underwear, getting more and more bold as I got drunk. I was openly masturbating while talking to people, and one of my good friends who lived in that house asked me to leave. Most of my cringe stories involve the worst thing a girl can ever say when you're getting with her in bed. What are you doing? I'm into some strange stuff, but apparently, some girls really hate getting head. 2. The worst one ever. I was in 7th grade. My friend Nick and I were the weirdos in MR Palmer's science class. Anyway, we were on a kick where we'd add nest to the end of random words, awesomeness, etc. Welp. We were working on something in class, laughing, and without thinking, I turned to our teacher, raised my hand and said, MR, penis, I have a question. Still feeling the red face on that one 10 years later. Mistakenly went to a black tie dinner party as an ice hockey player. Myself and about 3-4 other friends watched twin brothers have an L6. Context, we were out roaming around some abandoned house, and ran into the brothers. They asked if we wanted to see them have a sex, and, thinking they were joking, we said sure. Shudder, they were not joking. Oh my god. I was a terrible little twat in high school that thought dyeing my hair pitch ducking black was cool. I'm a dude. I got tormented by everyone because I was such a cringy tryhard. I even popped a pimple and drew a pentagram with a puss and blood. I used to pretend I was in abandoned junior high school. People would ask me very band related problems and I would change the conversation really quickly. One time during a fire drill at school, I saw one of my classmates who needed those walker poles, sorry don't know the name, on the floor and I tried to help him up. It turned out he was just on the floor getting stuff out of his locker. I felt pretty cringy about it. During my goth phase in high school I dressed as the Crow for Halloween. Full on get up with leather pants, fitted black t-shirt, tape around the wrist and hands with full face makeup. I'm still trying to burn every photo I find. When I was 10 I made action movies using Nerf guns and fake guns etc. And people from my primary school found them. They spread like wildfire for a few days even after I took them off of YouTube. Yes, I put them on YouTube because somebody had downloaded them somehow and spread them around. They were ducking awful. Someone stunk up the office with their microwaved fish and what I meant to say is we need some incense in here. What I actually said was we need some incest in here. Everyone within earshot stopped and stared at me. I'm just going to make a bot that posts this every time a question is posted with the word cringe in it. Basically any girl I dated in middle school was a cringe-worthy experience. If I ever got rejected I would go through hoops to get them back because I always thought they were the one type bullet. Once I got into high school I cooled down a lot and didn't really date anyone until junior year because I turned myself off from relationships so badly. The good thing about the whole situation though was I learned from my mistakes and I'm a way better boyfriend now. I was once interested in a girl in middle school and asked my friend not to try to ride my wave. Ugh. I cringe just writing this. I went to Amsterdam with my boyfriend at the time. He smokes a lot of weed. So I tried to act all badass and keep up. Ended up getting way too high and having a full-blown seizure pissing my pants on the side of the road at 10 AM while he watched. There's a video of me when I was 13 with bright pink leg warmers and my camo colored top rolled up like Britney style. Dancing to Low by Flo Rida. Stupidly showed by friend around a year and a half ago and she uploaded it to her Facebook. The humiliation was real. I was talking to my boss on the phone as I was walking out the door and saying goodbye to my wife. I was thinking of about a million things at once. My boss was a very gruff woman who didn't take it. As I was walking out and lightly kissed my wife on the cheek, I said to my boss, "I'll see you soon. I love you," and hung up. A good. Recorded myself sing once. Back in high school I transferred in as a junior and didn't know many people or much about the school. In the multi-story open atrium one day people were throwing paper red and white maple leaves from the top floor. The ground was wet from rain earlier in the day. I turned to my friend, the only one around, and said I'm going to slip and die on one of these leaves. I hit you not. He explains to me the leaves were to commemorate his dead older brother. WHO had slipped on water in his home, hit his head and died 2 years earlier. Wrote a series of love poems about a girl I liked when I was 13 and kept mailing them to her with letters despite her repeatedly telling me she did not like me back. Desperation was my Axe body spray. My emo phase during high school. Thank God social media wasn't that big at the time so I don't have a lot of long-lasting evidence of this. My high school emo phase. Thinking back I really wish someone would have kicked my ass. I've told this one before. When I was in high school and I was out on what I think was a date with this girl. We went to the zoo and then grabbed some food at some place. Afterwards, we had to split up in order to get our trains that were going in the opposite direction. I awkwardly tried to lean in for a kiss while she went in to hug me, and I ended up headbutting her in the face and her nose started bleeding. I was embarrassed as duck, so I just asked, "Are you okay?" and when she said, "I think so," I just waved goodbye and ran into the train station. I shot the MD of a company I was interning at in the face with a pen lid in the middle of a company-wide meeting about recent layoffs and the future of the business. I had the lid hooked onto an elastic strap of a notebook and was idly tugging on the pen. Little did I know I'd essentially fashioned a crude ballista and was aiming it square at the decidedly morbid face of the boss as he grimly spoke of a shaky future. The tension became too much for the clasp of the lid and it loosed, true as an arrow, straight into his eye. I'll never forget the wince, the slight dizziness experienced as the whole room collectively gasped the air from the atmosphere or the endless settling of spinning pen lid on the conference table everyone was somberly gathered around. I had to finally pierce the silence with a mumbling apology about how I was sorry and it was an accident and then shuffle over and awkwardly retrieve the lid. Seriously, where do you even start explaining how you accidentally made a miniature siege weapon and fired it at the MD? About 9 years old, right after Wild Wild West with Will Smith had come out, I decided to do a talent show of the song with me pretending to rap and dance around. I still cringe hard when I think of me up there running around pretending to rap. I was a very white child. One of my grade 12 teachers, who I'd had a crush on since 10th grade, was offering to give us our final marks during exam week. Since we had an in-class exam a week earlier and he was finished marking, I had a bag of Hershey's Kisses with me and was sharing them with people as I waited around after another exam for my bus to come. I went to get my grade from him and felt daring. So when he noticed me I told him I'd trade him a kiss for my grades. I waited a heartbeat too long before offering him the chocolate. He was really kind and pretended not to notice, but I saw the look of panic flash across his face for a split second. Sorry MRP. Throwaway account because I'm embarrassed as duck about this. But anyway, one day I got super ducking high, and for some reason was feeling really horny and also extremely experimental. Well, I guess with my higher logic I decided it would be good to try stuff I wasn't normally into. So, I decided to go with Sandman butt stuff. Obviously I didn't have anything for that, as I didn't normal do that, and I was also high as duck, so I decided to improvise. So, I found some old lube, a smooth wine bottle, and some really strong clothespins. These suckers could pinch dart and I just kind of dart went at it. So, yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up practically twisting my nipples upside down with clothespins, while furiously masturbating with a wine bottle shoved up my ass.